The scream silenced the entire docking bay. Conversations stopped instantly. Cargo loaders froze mid-motion. Even the massive transport engines, humming outside, suddenly seemed quieter beneath the sound. A tiny alien cub stood trembling beside an overturned coffee container. Silver fur soaked with dark liquid while panic filled its glowing blue eyes. And directly in front of it, a human mechanic stared in absolute horror. Oh no. Jace Mercer dropped to his knees immediately. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. But the cub had already backed against the wall, shaking violently, terrified, not injured, terrified. And somehow that made everything much worse. Dogging Bay 12 aboard Orion Station wasn't built for comfort. It was loud, crowded, always moving. Freighters arrived every hour carrying cargo from across the outer systems while exhausted. Workers stumbled between repair crews, vendors, and supply drones beneath flickering industrial lights. Most beings hated the place. Jace kind of loved it. After 10 years repairing cargo engines, the noise felt normal to him. Predictable. Sibid. Machines made sense, people usually didn't. Especially alien people. Which explained why Jace nearly walked straight past the cub earlier that morning. It sat quietly near one of the docking pillars, wrapped in a gray thermal blanket, far too large for its tiny body, small thin, silver-furred, watching everything carefully without making a sound. At first, Jace assumed the cub belonged to one of the traveling merchant families, crossing through the station. Then he noticed something strange. Nobody went near it. Not station workers, not travelers, not even security officers. Everyone avoided the cub deliberately. Like they were afraid of it, which made absolutely no sense. Because the creature looked barely older than a kitten. Now the cub stood soaked in spilled coffee while half the docking bay stared openly. Jace kept his hands visible carefully. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not gonna hurt you." The cub flinched anyway. Its breathing became uneven. Sharp little claws scraped against the floor nervously. Then suddenly, 3 armed security drones descended from the ceiling. Weapons active, turning Jace instantly. The mechanic blinked upward. "Excuse me?" Warning distress response activated. Protective priority. Signal detected. Jace stared in disbelief. What protective signal? Then the cub made another frightened sound, and 6 more drones arrived. "Oh, fantastic," Jace muttered. The surrounding crowd backed away rapidly now. Whispers spread through the docking bay almost instantly. "Is that a Veylari cub? Why's it alone?" "No wonder," security responded. "Who spilled something on it?" Jace slowly looked toward the tiny creature again. "Veylari?" His stomach dropped. Because he recognized the name immediately. Everybody did. The Veylari weren't ordinary aliens. They were one of the most psychologically advanced species in known space, empathic, deeply bonded socially, and extremely protective of their young. Stories claimed adult Veylari could sense emotional distress across incredible distances. Most humans assumed those stories were exaggerated, until today apparently. "I didn't hurt it," Jace told the drones carefully. One drone scanned him, a now ding. Thermal readings detant, human stress response. Possible aggressor. "Oh, come on." The cub suddenly whimpered again. The drones moved closer. Jace raised both hands immediately. "I spilled coffee." Silence. One drone tilted slightly. "Liquid assault? That's not a real thing." A few nearby workers laughed nervously. The cub remained pressed against the wall, trembling beneath the oversized blanket. And that's when Jace noticed something important. The cub wasn't afraid because of the coffee. It was afraid because everyone else was panicking. The drones, the shouting, the crowd staring, all of it fed the creatures, fear worse and worse, which probably triggered the station's security response system harder each second. Wonderful. Jace sighed slowly. Then did the last thing anyone expected. He sat down on the floor. Right there in front of the armed drones, the crowd blinked in confusion. What's he doing? Jace ignored them. Slowly, carefully, he reached toward the fallen coffee container nearby. Thankfully, most of the hot liquid spilled away from the cub already. Only a few drops actually touched the blanket, still enough to scare the poor thing. Half to death apparently. Jace grabbed a clean cloth from his repair belt, then gently pushed the coffee container farther away. There's, he said quietly. Gone. The cub watched him carefully, still trembling. Jace kept his voice calm. My little sister used to panic during thunderstorms. The drones remained hovering around him uncertainly now. Probably confused why the dangerous human mechanic was suddenly storytelling instead of resisting arrest. Jace shrugged slightly. She hated loud noises too. The cub's ears twitched beneath the blanket. Interesting. You know what helped? The mechanic reached into his jacket pocket slowly, pulled out a wrapped sugar biscuit from his lunch supplies, and placed it gently on the floor between them. No shouting. The cub stared at the biscuit, then at him. Then slowly, very slowly, took one tiny step forward. The entire docking bay went silent. Even the drones stopped moving. The cub approached carefully until it reached the biscuit, sniffed it once, then looked back toward Jace uncertainly. It's sweet, he explained softly. Humans eat them with coffee. The cub hesitated, then picked up the biscuit carefully using tiny claws, and immediately sneezed because powdered sugar hit its nose. Jace accidentally laughed, not loudly. Just one surprised little sound. The cub froze, then unexpectedly made a chirping noise, almost amused. Around the docking bay, several alien travelers suddenly gasped. One whispered quietly, "It likes him." Things somehow became even stranger after that. Because once the cub stopped panicking, the drones shut down instantly, all of them, midair. Like someone flipped a switch, they simply returned to passive observation mode and floated harmlessly near the ceiling again. The crowd erupted with confused conversation immediately. Jace stared upward. You've got to be kidding me. A station officer pushed through the crowd, moments later looking exhausted already. Officer Ren Talvek, dogging security supervisor. Permanent headache. What happened now? He groaned. Several people pointed directly at Jace. The officer looked toward the human mechanic, then the cub, then the spilled coffee. I'm afraid to ask. It was an accident, Jace said immediately. The drones thought I assaulted it with caffeine. Officer Talvek closed his eyes briefly. Of course they did. The truth came out slowly afterward. The cub's name was Veylari, one of the youngest children of a high-ranking Veylari diplomatic family traveling through Orion Station. Unfortunately, Veylari children possessed extremely sensitive, empathic responses during early development, fear signals, stress reactions, emotional overload. And because station security integrated partially with Veylari emotional technology after recent diplomatic treaties, the system automatically responded to Leary's panic like a life-threatening emergency, meaning Jace accidentally triggered half the station's defense network by spilling coffee. Great, he muttered. That's definitely going on my permanent record. Officer Talvek actually smirked slightly. It already has. But the truly shocking part came later, because Leary refused to leave Jace afterward, completely refused. The moment diplomatic attendants tried guiding the cub away, Leary panicked again instantly. The drones reactivated, alarms almost triggered, and the tiny cub physically wrapped itself around Jace's leg beneath the blanket. The entire docking bay stared. One Veylari attendant blinked slowly. This is unusual. You think? Jace replied. Another attendant studied him carefully. Veylari cubs bond strongly with emotional stabilizers. Jace frowned. With what? The attendant gestured toward him. You remained calm during distress. I was absolutely not calm. You sat beside a frightened child while armed drones targeted you. Fair point. The cub chirped happily against his boot. Apparently the issue was settled. Over the next several days, Leary followed Jace everywhere, through maintenance tunnels, across cargo platforms, inside repair bays. The tiny silver cub waddled behind the exhausted mechanic, like a loyal shadow wrapped in an oversized blanket. Workers became obsessed immediately. Coffee guy's back. The Veylari cub likes him again. Did the station drones threaten anyone today? Only Gary from cargo loading. Fair. Jace hated the attention. Leary loved it, especially because people kept bringing sweet snacks afterward. But nobody understood the full situation until the station blackout happened, because apparently every sci-fi station experienced dramatic power failures eventually. Orion Station lost primary energy grids during a meteor impact 3 weeks later. Emergency systems failed across multiple sectors. Docking Bay 12 descended into darkness instantly. Panic spread fast. Travelers shouted. Cargo systems malfunctioned. Several frightened civilians became trapped inside sealed transit corridors. Then suddenly, Leary screamed, not fearfully, purposefully. A pulse of blue light exploded outward from the cub's tiny body, and every emergency system nearby reactivated simultaneously. Lights, dowers, medical scanners, non-occasion markers. The entire corridor powered back online around them. People stared in shock. Jace stared harder. Did the cub just restart the station? One engineer whispered back. I think the cub just restarted the station. The truth shocked everyone afterward. Young Veylari possessed instinctive empathic energy resonance abilities during emotional bonding stages, normally unstable. Dangerous even. Unless connected to someone emotionally grounding enough to help regulate them safely. Someone calm, protective, safe. The diplomatic attendants explained it quietly later while Leary slept curled beside Jace inside a repair office chair. She trusts you completely now. Jace looked down at the tiny cub wrapped inside his station jacket. Why? The attendant smiled softly. Because when she was frightened, she glanced toward the sleeping child carefully. You sat down instead of standing over her. Silence followed. Sybil, that was it. Not heroics. Not bravery, not power. Just kindness during fear. And apparently for Veylari, that meant everything. Months later, travelers crossing Orion Station still told the story. The story about the exhausted human mechanic who accidentally terrified a diplomatic alien cub with hot coffee, then somehow became its favorite person in the galaxy. Jace still repaired engines every day, still drank too much coffee, still complained constantly whenever Leary stole his tools and hid them inside ventilation shafts. But he never truly minded, because now whenever the docking bays grew loud or chaotic, a tiny silver cub always appeared beside him eventually, curled safely inside his jacket. Completely unafraid, and honestly, that felt pretty important, because sometimes humanity changes the galaxy through giant wars, sometimes through impossible discoveries. sometimes through legendary acts of courage, and sometimes it changes. Because one ordinary human spills hot coffee by accident, then chooses compassion instead of fear when a frightened alien child starts crying.